Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And first, give yourself gratitude. If you need to give yourself gratitude for something, let it be that you've made a choice to spend 90 minutes going within today. It's certainly worth acknowledging. Tell your personal self, reassure your personal self. Send it love. The divine showing up as your personality, as your body, with the brave move to be open, to be a sponge for conditioning from environment, from parents, from leaders, from media, from life incidences, that we just soak it all up and that creates the story of me. It's quite amazing, actually. And so it kind of takes a bit of courage for the divine to show up and be that susceptible to the whims of what's possible. Much and all as we kind of think we're protecting ourselves and we think that we have control, and we think that, and to a certain extent that's true, within one realm that's true. I want us to look from the bigger picture, where that which you are recognizes that it shows up as everything, but right now as you, as the human being that you go by. Just take a moment to acknowledge the courage that it took to incarnate. And if we withdraw deeper into, or further back into finer levels of consciousness, what you can see is it had no choice. There wasn't a moment where what you are said, okay, I'm going to incarnate and let a life unfold from external influences and genetics and conditioning and circumstances, and we'll call that a life. So at some level, you had choice, go deeper. Can you find a more pure place within you where you can actually see? Don't buy Jac's concept. See if you can recognize, if you can taste that the movement towards incarnating was inevitable. That what you are knew that there would be nothing lost and nothing gained. Where what you are recognized that it was playing in form. Where there is no capacity to count a cost. There's no capacity to have regrets. Because there's no cause and effect there. Can you taste? Can you taste what it is that's really incarnating? Can you taste it? And is that okay? Is it genuinely okay? Because if you can taste it, then there will be no sense of regret or life is really hard or those subjective perceptions. They're actually not there. So be careful not to suppress or deny something because you want to get to a deeper state. That's not what we're talking about. The state of consciousness, your true nature, to use a non-dual term, the inevitability of manifesting in form. Can you taste that? You could say the helplessness of the divine manifesting as in a human life. Let's get a little bit more familiar with that layer of consciousness, the nature of that level of consciousness. And so many scriptures, they speak about, the divine had a desire to get to know itself. So this one is a bit deeper. If that makes sense to you, this one doesn't do desire. Doesn't do desire. You can say it simply is. Physiologically, your body needs to be relaxed. It's about letting go of thought, and the word I use is the felt sense. It's like a subtle dialing into something prior to any me story. More foundational, more fundamental than any labeling of the world and my life. That's where I'm pointing to. And it is without motivation. Does it know even that it's incarnating? Does it know? If it knows, does it feel like it's regretting it? Like, so if it knows something, then there might be an idea of what it thinks about that knowing. Because when we know something, if the divine really truly knows from that level of consciousness that it's incarnating, if it really knows it, then it would roll out a whole load of responses. It would be, the divine loves me. The divine, the divine is calling me home. This level of consciousness doesn't have that going on. Doesn't have that going on. I'm directing you today to the causeless level of consciousness, where it's deeper than cause and effect, causeless. If you're lost, let the words come to you. Don't try and figure it out, because the figuring out motivation will be the very thing that blocks, that distracts your attention from going deeper. What to do instead? Rest. Rest. Let these words come to you. Try not to grab onto any reaction at all, any response at all. Let's see what shows itself to you. And so from that place, the attributes of consciousness that you have a capacity to bring into your brain, bring into your conscious mind. This capacity of consciousness isn't plugged into reason, cause and effect, isn't plugged into time, doesn't have emotional responses. We could say it's empty, we could say it's still, we could say these things. The most important attribute that I want to point you to today is the level of consciousness that I'm speaking about is causeless. It wasn't created because of anything. And our brain can do nothing with that. I mean, nothing. It's completely wired into cause and effect. It cannot go there. So even if there's a glimpse of causeless, kind of makes sense somehow, great. If you get the tiniest little crack, wonderful. Without cause. And why it's wonderful is because it's a way of telling us that the mind, that you have access to consciousness without your mind making it up. Because your mind will have to apply cause and effect to everything. That's how it operates. We actually can't imagine without cause. We can't. We can grab a concept, but we can't imagine. So I'm inviting you to taste causeless. To know it, not just in theory, but to know it. And a really good way to know it is to locate that capacity within what you really are. From that capacity, the inevitability of manifestation, of human life, of experiences. They show up. There's no reaction. There's no reasoning required. None of that. Why? How? When? Who? Where? None of those apply. None of them. It's causeless. More foundational than the laws of cause and effect. but you're dependent on space and time. It's one thing to drop in. It's one thing to taste that level of consciousness. It's quite another thing to taste that same level of consciousness, and within the same perception, you have the story of you. It's allowed to come in your periphery vision. That's the one I'm going for. It's about, it will result in a reframing of how you perceive yourself, of how perception of you can show up. That's more accurate. Is there, language is getting tricky for me, is there a reframing of the me and the my life? Is there a reframing? And if it's reframed, and the inevitability and the causeless unfolding of manifestation is kind of grokked, man, there's a freedom there. There is a freedom that bleeds through, because your what shows up in form is informed by the deeper foundation that enabled, that shows up in manifestation without anything other than freedom. Freedom expressing itself, neither with nor without care, love, reason, karma, story, desire, deeper than any of those things. And so if I can direct our human brains so that there is an allowance for the level of consciousness that perhaps can be tasted. Is your brain familiar with the line where it can't go? And so that the taste of that freedom penetrates your life. Causeless.